I told you some of the most shocking whistleblowers in history never got to tell their full story because they vanished before they could. These weren't just random disappearances, these were people who had come forward with explosive secrets, government projects, hidden tech, military cover-ups, and then after they spoke up, they were just gone. No one could find them. No one could explain it. Philip Taylor Kramer wasn't just the bassist for Iron Butterfly. He was also a gifted aerospace engineer who worked on missile guidance systems and cutting-edge tech like fractal compression and faster-than-light communications. In 1995, after a failed business deal involving video analysis technology and rumored ties to the O.J. Simpson case, Kramer made a chilling 911 call saying that he was going to harm himself. Quote, "And I want everyone to know O.J. Simpson is innocent. They did it." End quote. Then he disappeared. His van and skeletal remains were found 4 years later in a ravine near Malibu. Authorities ruled it as something he did to himself, but his father insisted he had been threatened over his work and warned years earlier that if it ever seemed like he had done something like that to himself, not to believe it. In 1991, freelance journalist Danny Casolaro was investigating what he called the octopus, a tangled web of government corruption involving the stolen Promise software, Iran-Contra, the collapse of BCCI, and the October surprise theory. He believed he was close to exposing a massive conspiracy tying together espionage, arms deals, and organized crime. Days before his trip to meet a key source, Danny received threatening phone calls and told his family that if anything happened to him, it wouldn't be an accident. Then he was found dead in a hotel bathtub in Martinsburg, West Virginia, with very mysterious wounds. Authorities ruled that he had done this to himself, but his family, friends, and some FBI investigators have always believed that he was silenced. Strangely, files about this incident were later reported missing, and new evidence suggests a man tied to psychological warfare may have visited Danny's hotel room the night he died. To this day, no one has been able to prove what really happened or who was trying to stop him. In 1826, a man named William Morgan from Batavia, New York, announced he was publishing a book that would reveal the secret rituals of the Freemasons. Not long after, he was arrested on petty charges, mysteriously released, and then vanished. Witnesses claimed he was kidnapped by local Masons, taken to Fort Niagara, and possibly thrown into the Niagara River. His disappearance sparked massive outrage, led to several convictions, and even gave rise to the Anti-Masonic Party, America's first third political party. While some claimed Morgan fled the country, others believe he was killed to protect the Brotherhood's secrets. In a strange twist, over 150 years later, another man named William Morgan, this one an American rebel in Cuba, would also expose secret operations and meet a deadly fate. Two different men, nearly 2 centuries apart, both named William Morgan, both wrapped in conspiracies, and both silenced. This William Morgan was a US citizen who became a hero of the Cuban Revolution, leading rebel forces alongside Che Guevara and earning the rare rank of Comandante. But after the revolution, Morgan grew disillusioned as Castro shifted towards communism. Secretly working with CIA-backed counter-revolutionaries, Morgan began smuggling weapons to rebels. In 1960, he was arrested and charged with leading an armed resistance, and just months before the Bay of Pigs invasion, Morgan was executed by firing squad, with Fidel and Raul Castro reportedly watching. Though stripped of his citizenship before his death, the US quietly restored it in 2007. His widow, also a former rebel, claimed they were trying to stop Cuba from becoming a Soviet satellite, and that her husband paid the ultimate price for refusing to stay silent. In 1978, Australian pilot Frederick Valentich took off in a small aircraft from Melbourne. While flying over the Bass Strait, he radioed in a chilling message. Quote, "There's this strange object hovering above me. It's not an aircraft. That was the last anyone ever heard from him. His plane disappeared without a trace, no wreckage, no body, nothing. The incident was heavily investigated, but no conclusive answers were found. Some believe Valentich was intercepted by a classified aerial object. Others think he stumbled into something, like an experimental military craft that he wasn't supposed to see. Dr. John B. Alexander was part of U.S. military research into remote viewing, psychic warfare, and non-lethal weapons during the Cold War. He was associated with Project Stargate and worked at Los Alamos National Laboratory. But what's strange is this. For someone so deeply involved in top-secret programs, there is very little trace of his real work. Files are redacted, publications disappeared, and many of his colleagues refuse to speak on record. Some say he's still alive, possibly working deep within military black programs. Others believe he tried to expose too much and was buried in paperwork and silence. Thomas Castello claimed to be a former security officer at the infamous Dulce Base, a supposed underground facility in New Mexico tied to black budget experiments and possibly non-human entities. In the 90s, he leaked diagrams, security protocols, and written testimony describing things like human-alien hybrid experiments and high-level clearance wars. It sounded crazy, until multiple anonymous sources backed up parts of his story. Then he went off the grid. His passport was flagged, his family reportedly never heard from him again, no records of his death or even departure exist. Was he discredited or hiding? Or did he reveal something the government didn't want anyone to hear? Karen Silkwood was a chemical technician at a nuclear plant in Oklahoma who became a loud voice for worker safety. After raising alarms about radiation exposure and corporate negligence, she testified before the Atomic Energy Commission and soon after was mysteriously contaminated with plutonium. Even more unsettling, the substance was found not just on her body, but inside her home. On the night of November 13, 1974, Karen set out to meet with a journalist and union rep, reportedly carrying a binder full of damning evidence. She never made it. Her car veered off the road and hit a culvert, killing her instantly. Officials said she fell asleep at the wheel with methaqualone in her system, but the crash scene told a different story. There were skid marks showing she tried to regain control, unexplained damage to the back of her car. Oh, and that binder? It was never found. Karen had also told friends she'd been receiving threats. To this day, no one knows exactly what happened, but many believe she was silenced before she could expose the truth. In 1973, Henry Baltimore Jr. was a 21-year-old honors student at the University of Michigan with a very bright future ahead of him. But everything changed when two men broke into his apartment, tied him to the bed, and robbed him. Though hesitant, Henry eventually reported it, leading to the arrest of Roy Davis. Henry was scheduled to testify but never showed up. 2 days later, he resurfaced, terrified, and begged prosecutors to drop the case, but they refused. Another court date was set, but 2 days before that hearing, Henry vanished. At first, some thought he might have gone into hiding out of fear, but his family knew that something was wrong. Henry would never leave without telling someone. A neighbor later claimed that they saw Roy Davis and another man knocking on Henry's door the day he disappeared, but Roy's mother provided him an alibi and he was never charged. Without Henry's testimony, Roy got a plea deal, just 6 weeks in jail. Nearly 50 years later, the case remains unsolved. Some believe Henry was silenced to stop him from testifying, others think he ran, but if that's true, why has no one heard from him since? In 1945, Michigan State Senator Warren G. Hooper confessed to accepting a $500 bribe in exchange for his vote on a horse racing bill, but instead of keeping quiet, he flipped, agreeing to testify before a grand jury investigating widespread political corruption. Just days before that testimony, Hooper was found dead in his car with the vehicle set ablaze on the side of the road. His wasn't the only one either. 2 other witnesses in that same case also died under suspicious circumstances. The investigation eventually turned towards the notorious Purple Gang, a violent group tied to organized crime in Detroit. Rumors swirled that a former state treasurer, Frank McKay, also under investigation, had orchestrated the crimes by bribing a deputy warden to temporarily release 2 imprisoned members to carry out the hit. 4 gang affiliates were convicted of conspiracy to commit the crimes, but received light sentences, and 1 conviction was later overturned. Nearly 80 years later, these crimes remain unsolved, and many believe he was silenced from telling the truth. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thanks so much for checking it out. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I will see you again soon. Goodbye.